everyone, it's Carolyn here to share more channeled messages. Today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to actually be talking about something that has occurred with me recently that I think you all need to be aware of, because what I was getting as a message is this is going to happen in more and more of us who are awakening and who are light workers. This has happened to me since April, and it has to do with the energetic events that I'm experiencing in my body. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain to you the difference between what I have been feeling and the spiritual awakening process, but most importantly, how you can start identifying when something like this is happening to you, as well as what to do about it, because I have actually, over the last 5 months, been experiencing these major, what I just called energetic shifts that honestly, and I'm just going to be frank with you, were very disturbing. I had actually talked about this in one of my videos previously, but just touched on it. But what I want to express to you is that you may very likely start to experience these energetic events in your own spiritual awakening journey if you have not already. So, what I'm going to be talking about today, and stick with me on this, because the common word for it is Kundalini, okay? And you may say, oh, Kundalini, I don't either, it's not a thing for me, I don't know anything about it, or I've already had a Kundalini awakening. Stick with me on this, because there's something, and I can hardly explain it in words, but there's something important about the fact that I've been through this and going through this, and that it is important for people to know moving forward, given the energetic times that we are in. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to talk about spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening. They're not the same. They're part and parcel of the same thing. They kind of do this figure eight thing. They're part of the whole of our awakening journey. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't know that until I started getting channeled information around the last 5 months of all these major experiences that I've been having with these energetic shifts in me. I then, over time, and I'll talk about this, have been able to put together the pieces pretty quickly to understand what's going on, and then also, honestly, following just this guidance that I've had, our higher self guidance, where you just start to know what you need to do if you're attuned. And it's really been kind of mind-blowing for me of how I've been able to learn how to manage these, I just call them energetic events. You can call them Kundalini because that is what it is. It's ultimately that, but I like to talk about most things in terms of energy. So we're talking about the Kundalini energy, but we're also talking about spiritual awakening. So first and foremost, in my journey, I started out with spiritual awakening. You can argue that I had a small Kundalini experience in my crown before I even had my dark night of the soul, which then opened me up to a degree. However, it was not the full-blown energy moving through me. And part of that is because, I don't want to say typically, but very often, spiritual awakening, which is the psychological, emotional side, like consciousness, awareness, opening up of this journey, part of this journey, and the Kundalini awakening then comes in after that very often. So you can go through spiritual awakening for years, and then suddenly, as we are ready for the Kundalini to move through us, what starts happening is this impacts our nervous system, our energetic body, and our physical body. So what you've really got is kind of the whole mind-body situation going on. And the soul is always there and already gets it. So it's like bringing together mind, body, and soul with the spiritual awakening portion of that consciousness awareness, the emotional feeling, the psychological side. And then Kundalini awakening comes in and affects the nervous system, the physical, the energetics. Okay, and we're always affected. Our energetics are always affected, but no more significantly than these huge Kundalini moments. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how I realized what was happening to me. And I'm going to try to summarize this quickly. But back in April of this year, I had a massive event in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, where I woke up and I felt, oh, they just said disembodied. Yeah, exactly. I felt disembodied. I felt like there was two of me and I had an overlay of myself on top of myself. But I felt dizzy. I felt like I wasn't connected. Well, forget I wasn't grounded. I could hardly walk. I thought I was having a stroke or a heart attack because the human's doing this thing of, oh my God, it's got to be a thing, right? And then I'm hearing at the same time, you're having an anxiety attack. Well, they gave that to me so I could connect it to the kind of the Western explanation, right? So I wouldn't freak out. Because ultimately, my symptoms were so severe that, yes, it was an anxiety attack. And the more that I started to feel fear, the worse it got. And then I quickly realized, even in that event, and it was a full body expression, tingling, all my energy went to the center of me. I got cold hands, cold feet. I couldn't walk. I could hardly breathe. And I'm just telling you this because these were my symptoms. It doesn't mean yours will be the same. But remember, I'd never had this before. And I've been going through awakening. Well, I've been going through awakening since 2001, officially, that I know of. But the conscious awareness of it was 2016, when I had my direct night of the soul. And I haven't had any Kundalini. I kind of just felt like I was just moving along in my journey. Never even focused on Kundalini. Never, ever. And then it happened. And with that came a full body expression of the energy that was just ready to course through me and shift and change. And this is what will happen. Your journey dramatically. They called it an ego busting event too, because honestly, Kundalini, for me, what happened is it did impact the ego part of me. It like kicked out parts of me that I was having struggles with. But the point in this is it was very much a bodily expression. Very frightening, actually, until I got a hold of it that night. And in about an hour and a half time, I had gotten to the point, after going to the emergency room, yes, that's a whole nother story, and realizing that, I had an expression, not anxiety in the Western term, but I had an expression of divine energy running through me. And in realizing that, the significant impact on my body and my brain, and I'm going to tell you that right now, it was a full-on chakra energy movement through my body. Now, what had happened with me is why I had such a severe, I guess I'll just say, experience that wasn't honestly pleasant. Unfortunately, I kept my head together. It was because I have a lot of neck and shoulder. That's where I keep all my stuff, basically. And so everything got stuck here and it just couldn't move. And so then it just spread out through my body and then my whole body reacted to it. So it couldn't flow easily, which is why self-care is so important, which ties to a lot of things I'm going to be talking about. So we have the spiritual awakening process that typically happens first, and then comes the Kundalini Awakening. Now, what I do want you to know is that's not always the case. Sometimes spiritual awakening can happen with the Kundalini Awakening, all right? Especially if people are forcing something to happen or forcing themselves to try to go through awakening. I still firmly believe in just the full-on natural process. No helping toward blasting awake. That's Carolyn's view of things, and I believe we're all divinely attuned to what is meant for us. And when we go dabbling in trying to wake ourselves up either faster or wake ourselves up in just general, we can really reap the repercussions of that, and not in ways that are beneficial. So needless to say, these can happen all at the same time naturally. I am not talking about going and making it happen, okay? Because we all know there's ways to do that, which, again, I'm just saying aren't typically favorable to the process and can cause some issues for you. Okay, they just said, emotionally, very emotionally, neurologically kind of situation. Anyway, in talking about the neurological part, what happened to me after that first event in April, when I felt like I'd never felt in my life, and mind you, I have no health issues. I am very fortunate. I have nothing going on. I'm on no medications, nothing, right? I woke up the next morning after I finally was able to come back from the hospital and go back to sleep. I felt like I was coming out of anesthesia. So I've never had brain surgery, but it felt like I had my brain adjusted. So we think about the fact that energy is running through us. It's electrical, all right? It is electrical. There's energy running through us. Divine energy. This is how we're starting to shift and change to this higher place of ascension, is through the downloads that we get regularly, the upgrades we get, the sun, moon, planet events, but we also have our own divine energy and our own, they just said divine timing, in when that is a release to course through us. They just said that. When it is scheduled to release and course through us, is what I just heard. And it is divine timing. It is divine timing. However, what we need to understand is it's not always this beautiful experience. I will admit that I have a friend who went through it at the same time. April was a highly energetic time for some of this to start to happen. Some of you may have already noticed that this did start to happen to you in April. You may have gone through some of the same things. I've actually found 2 other people. One who's a good friend that is going through the same thing, but their experiences are very different than mine. So I'm just going to share my experience. My one friend's experience was like her whole chakra system seemed to be apparently wide open and ready to accept this, and she had the most pleasurable experience she's ever had. She says, I couldn't even believe it. And I said, well, mine wasn't. So just know it's all over the map. But once this starts to happen, it will continue to course through you at varying times. And it also it also makes us much more sensitive. It's as though when we have our first Kundalini awakening experience, it doesn't mean we're going to only have one. I've had 5. I've had 1 a month, but then I recently have had like 3 over the last month. For purpose, obviously, but what will happen is it's almost as though, I'll just use it this way, your nervous system becomes much more sensitized, which is why some of the things started to happen to me that I'm going to talk about. So what they have told me is more and more of us are going to start experiencing Kundalini Awakening. That couples in to pair with spiritual awakening. Again, some of you may have experienced this Kundalini Awakening first, and spiritual awakening then comes, but most likely spiritual awakening happens, and then down the road, when you're divinely ready, happens to, what they told me is do the ego busting work, which really has happened to me, and also really work on you energetically and physically. This has probably been the most difficult part of my entirety of my spiritual awakening journey, which is why I'm sharing it with you, because if you don't understand what is happening, I think it can be diagnosed as all kinds of things. And so what I would say to you is, if you know you're going through spiritual awakening, don't assume this is a problem with yourself physically. Start realizing, wait a minute, this feels like something Carolyn talked about. It feels, and then of course you're not going to get diagnosed as, you get diagnosed as having an anxiety attack potentially. This is one of the more not nice kinds of symptoms. Some people have very pleasurable experiences, like my friend. I, on the other hand, did not. I don't have a pleasurable experience with it, mainly because I was also blocked and in my neck, and so therefore it's still going to move through. Let me tell you, Kundalini, it doesn't matter. If you're blocked, you're going to experience it, and it's going to explode out into you and into you physically, and then it's going to try to work its way through, okay? Which is why I'm going to give you some of the things that we want to do regularly that will assist you in managing Kundalini. So my last incident happened around Lionsgate. It was the Friday night before Lionsgate. I guess that would be August 6th. And it was, again, every night for me, every time it happens for me, it's in like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And what I had started to realize after 5 of these, after the first emergency room event, is that I could start to manage these. I started to realize that my reaction to the Kundalini Awakening event was probably the most important thing. If we go into fear, guess what? We succumb. Now, Kundalini is there for a good purpose and a good reason, but it's also ferocious. And when we offer fear into it, our anxiety will grow, and that energy somehow seems to, I don't want to say feed off of it. It's like additional energy that's not needed. All right, so just think of everything in terms of energy. You're putting all this anxious energy into it. You're adding it with Kundalini that's already there. So what I realized quickly was, okay, I just need to breathe. I know what this is. I immediately knew after my first emergency room event, because I'm pretty connected, and I heard, okay, this is an energetic event. This is Kundalini, and I was like, oh my gosh, assuming it would never happen again. Oh no, every month since then, and then recently twice. So realizing that I could start to manage this in the moment it's happening by kicking back and not having fear, really focusing on the breath. This is key, and it's going to be one of the things I talk about here, really focusing on the breath. I basically sat on the edge of my bed and I just breathed. And I also made the attempt, well, I had to get back into a decent breathing rhythm, because what can happen is as you go into anxiety, you can also go into kind of the whole hyperventilation thing. So it's key to get out of fear. Just step out of it, see it for what it is, observe it, and be able to, in essence, work with the Kundalini, not fight it. Okay, so we fight it by putting fear into it and more anxiety. When we work with it, we just allow. We allow. And we breathe. And we'll talk about some breathing opportunities here for you as we move forward. So sitting on the edge of my bed, I essentially started to breathe in 4 and out 8. And in 4 slowly and out 8. I also was taking my mind off of that by focusing on my breath. Something else that I did is I finally decided to, maybe I'll just look at Instagram or read a book and try to do that to take my mind off of this fear. But what I found was that really didn't do it for me. It did distract me, but the breath work was key, because what it was doing for me, okay, they just said it was regulating your nervous system. And so as we have a smoothness of breath in and out, that helps the flow of that energy too. Because remember, everything's energetic, including your breath. So you're working with your breath, with the Kundalini energy, and you're allowing it to flow, is what I found to be extraordinarily helpful. And it's what I do now, because mine all happen in the middle of the night at 1 or 2 in the morning. Go figure, right? So then when these occur for me, ultimately, it takes about an hour before I'm able to actually go back to sleep. Now, this is just the way it works for me. Everybody's probably going to be very different. But I think you're going to find some common threads as you start having this happen to you. My belief is that we'll all have this happen ultimately in some way with Kundalini. Because, see, I am getting that as we continue to send, we have the spiritual awakening component, and we have the Kundalini. We have both because they're part and parcel of the same thing, but they're different. They really show this. It looks like a DNA strand. It's like this. Anyway, needless to say, so all of us at some point are going to experience this, and this is my initial entry into Kundalini. So again, I'm just learning for myself, and I've learned very quickly how to manage it for yourself. You don't want to have to keep going through these events, assuming they're repeated, which mine have been, and not know what to do for yourself. Because I believe we can take charge of a lot of this in the sense of working with the Kundalini, and rather than fearing it, which will just cause it to run more rampant through us in a way that doesn't, I guess I'll just say, serve the physical human, or that makes it much more difficult. So then from there, I eventually fell back to sleep after about an hour. The next day, and this has not changed. Every time I have this, I wake up and I really feel like I've been through anesthesia, that I've had some kind of brain upgrade, or I just feel a little numb and I'm a little weak, and I can't do a lot the next day, which is real difficult, obviously, to all of a sudden realize, wow, I just had one of those last night. Now I got to change everything I'm doing today. It's hard to operate in the same manner. You feel a little slower, or at least I do. I feel a little slower. I talk slower. But the biggest thing that I noticed literally after my first event, because I'm very attuned to myself. If you're very attuned to yourself and you're very attuned to being able to see big picture, and you're able to see how things fit in, you're going to start getting how this works for you. I started to realize that my thought patterns were different. The things which I have a few things right now that I'm dealing with personally that bug the heck out of me, right? That have been itching at me, that I'm coming through over the last year to allow to no longer drive my behavior. Well, needless to say, I come out of this first Kundalini experience and I realize I feel so much further removed from those thought forms that I would have, or those patterns of behavior that I would have, and how I would treat myself and how I would react to the external stimulus that would cause me then to behave that way. It's just literally like it got ripped away from me overnight, and I'm not kidding you, overnight. And then what would happen after that is I would feel this sense of peace. It's a very peaceful feeling that I had the day after a Kundalini event, because again, mine all happened at night. But I needed to take time for myself. So the other thing that I noticed is I needed a lot of water that next day, which this all really kind of ties. You have an event and it's using up energy in your body and you need to replenish. And water allows energy to move through. Okay, so keep the water in you. We're going to get to some more of this. So, because I want to tell you how I've experienced it, and we're going to talk about things to notice and that you can do as well. And so then from there, what I would realize was over the next few days, I just felt a calmer version of myself. I literally changed overnight after the first Kundalini Awakening. And we'll talk about some of those things, but then from there on, every event after, which remember I've had 5, there's been a continued, I'll just say, uptick of the ego stepping back. The things that bothered me don't bother me. It's literally like I'm in a place of complete observer role. I rarely get emotional now over things. I rarely get, because I'm pretty intense. I have a lot of energy, and I rarely get angry, upset. The ego has really taken a back seat. So, I don't know what you've heard about Kundalini before, but my experience and what I was told is that Kundalini is partially an ego busting event. All right, it comes in when it needs to wash out some of the things that we've had that we're carrying with us still, and that are kind of the tough nuts to crack. Additionally, it is working the energetic body, very much so, but it's also working the brain and how the brain works. And I know that just from the things I've experienced and how I feel. So those things in general are what I would experience after the Kundalini event for the most part. Physically, I also felt weaker, just like, I'm just not going to go play tennis or do whatever. But here's some of the significant things that I've noticed since then over the course of 5 months that have shifted and changed for me. They've been very significant, and also some things that you can do. So I'm going to actually read from a list right now. So some of these things are combined with things that helped me manage myself and new things that I started to do. And let me tell you, they were all divinely sent to me. One of the first things that I started doing directly after this, and when I look back now, I realize, okay, this was all sent to me. Again, our higher self is helping guide the way. If we pick up on our signs and messages, which we, during spiritual awakening, it's kind of hard not to, right? It just shows up. We just allow it to flow to us. Well, I was led to starting up, not yoga, but stretching again, longer term moments of stretching. I had come into my awareness, it's 3:33, yay! I had come into my awareness this young man who actually offers stretching opportunities for us to be able to have our energetic system flow more effectively. And it's really kind of yoga poses, but it's longer stretching, more minutes, I would say. Well, come to find out, this helped my Kundalini immensely. It helped the energy flow in my body. I could feel this. So I hold these poses longer. I work every single day to do some form of longer term stretching to allow flow. Because remember, this is about flow. What kind of flow do you have going in your body? And when we have flow, when we don't have, the big boulders that I apparently had in my neck, to come through, we don't have that expression out of just the Kundalini not being able to get to where it wants to, because it will get to where it wants to. So being able to have that stretching of our body, that has been key for me. longer moments of stretching. Yoga's helpful, but the poses, what I have found, need to be longer than a typical yoga class. All right. The other thing that I have found tremendously important, which I never did before, was breath work. So within this kind of stretching that I'm now doing, I'm very much doing a different kind of breath work. And I use it also when I have my Kundalini show up in the middle of the night. It's 4 breaths in through my nose and then 8 out through my mouth. And that's what you just keep repeating. And I'm going to tell you, even if you don't have Kundalini roaring through you at the time, it's a practice that will allow you calmness, and it will open up energy flow through you, and it assists in being able to flow the Kundalini in a way, because you can just kind of think of it as flowing down a stream. In other words, all the gunk we put in our way, in our stream as we're moving through the course of our day. So think of it as opening up flow in your body through stretching and through breath. Those are 2 major things that will assist you in a Kundalini awakening as you're in the throes of it. And then what you want to do is continue to do it regularly. Because honestly, what has happened with me since my Kundalini started in April, I'm working with a whole different body. I'm working with a whole different way of being. I'm having to add complete new practices. I'm having to think very differently about the sensitivity of my body. And it's not a burden. It's just a whole different way of looking. And the other part of this too is that habits that maybe you once had, the spigot for alcohol consumption, because I've talked to you about my enjoying of wine and drinks on occasion, right? And that's been a thing for me. I've kind of wanted to set it aside. Well, have a Kundalini experience, suddenly you do not want alcohol anymore. At least I didn't. Okay, so how that plays out for you, I don't know. In habits, suddenly you're just totally turned off by the idea so much you do not want anymore. And I literally overnight had that happen after my first experience in April. And since then, it has become more and more prevalent. Plus, the other thing is, what I have found is the habits, like the alcohol consumption, opened me up even more to the opportunity to have a Kundalini experience. Now, I'm not saying I don't want to have one, but I certainly don't want to initiate it. I'm of the mindset you don't want to initiate your Kundalini, okay? If it happens, it's going to happen organically and naturally, but alcohol will help initiate it. I have found that it's almost like I've been doing an experiment over the last 5 months, and I kind of like that anyway. And I did actually one evening say to myself, I'm just going to have a glass of wine. Well, I was in the mood for a glass of wine. That did not serve me. Now, another time it didn't happen. But mostly when I have had a glass of wine, I will have a Kundalini experience that night. Because what it does is it opens up alcohol. You're open enough as it is with spiritual awakening, right? And now you're starting to have Kundalini roll through you, and you're open even more. And now you've got alcohol opening you up, which also allows a lot of other things to dump in, and we won't go there today. But as you know, it can open us up to other lower energies. So what I found very quickly was all of a sudden alcohol was not something. So I had a shift and change in what I desired going into me. Now remember, these are all things you can do, but they're also things that you're going to be maybe driven to do. This is all, I didn't go research anything on Kundalini. This is all just showed up, and I started doing stuff. And then I started to put this together. I thought, oh, this is all tied to what me going through Kundalini. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that before, but this is not Carolyn going out researching on how to do this. This just showed up. And so this is my own recipe of what showed up for me to do that has worked immensely well. You'll probably have things show up just for you that you'll start wanting to do, because organically your higher self and your body is going to lead you to do what's right for you. So that's why I'm sharing this, because it just has started to happen. I didn't go read somebody else's blog on what to do. The other thing is, and this is so fascinating, if we go back to why the Kundalini probably started for me, and you do have to be a little bit aware of these. And some of you will probably go, Carolyn, you didn't know this? I didn't know this. So I've always done meditations where I'm just doing silent meditation for 4 or 5 years. Silent meditation twice a day. Nothing. silent space. I'm not looking to do anything. I'm not looking to get anything. And I love those, right? Well, suddenly I was brought in my awareness, and I know this was divinely meant, was brought to my awareness frequency and Hertz meditations. And there's this wonderful channel, Love Motives, on YouTube. Fantastic music that was brought to me to start doing. Well, I think everything does happen in divine timing. That was brought to me in April. I do believe my Kundalini was supposed to happen, but I think I kind of overdid it. Typical. I switched out all my silent meditations. Twice a day, I was doing Hertz or frequency meditations. I was. Those are incredibly, incredibly powerful. So what I would say to you, they come with a warning. I mean, they don't, but I'm sending you the warning, is use those, I don't want to say infrequently. Be aware of what they can do. Because for me, I was apparently very ready for Kundalini to open up, and what I now realize is that is what has caused my Kundalini to run through me and open up. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't meant to happen. I'm just saying I think I made it more intense by doing these meditations probably far too often, twice a day, for 30 minutes a day. Yes. So needless to say, I organically, naturally, all of a sudden realized I was no longer doing these. I look back and I'm like, oh, I kind of stopped doing the frequency meditations in May. Put two and two together and they're like, of course. I also got led back to my silent meditation, but then guess what? I got led back to just recently not doing any meditation at all. Yes, I know. That from me, who talks about meditation all the time. Because guess what? When you're going through a Kundalini awakening, you become super sensitive and you're already open enough as it is. And what happens when we meditate, we go into another place. We're ungrounded, right? We often just leave our bodies. Well, Kundalini loves that, okay? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it will help initiate, potentially, which it did in me, Kundalini running through you again. And remember, my process is always the same. It's that same thing at 1 or 2 in the night where I get all those same symptoms. Now, what I will tell you is after the first one, they are now tamped down to at least 50%, and I'm able to manage them. Okay, they're still there, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the point in this is what you're going to want to do if you start going through Kundalini Awakening and you're a big meditator. Okay, kick back. Kick back on your spiritual practices. Focus on just breath work and don't go into a state. Just breathe, all right? Focus on mindfulness. So guess what happened to me? Instead of meditation, mindfulness started showing up. I started, and this is so interesting, and then I connected it to an actual mindfulness practice. So mindfulness, I come to find out, is a focused effort on a thing, right? It's really focusing on, like, okay, let's say when you're washing the dishes, you're really focused on washing dishes and how it feels, how the water feels, what the bubbles are like. Washing that dish. I mean, that's a really simple example, but the thing that you're in the now moment, really focusing on. Well, I started, and again, these are all organic. They showed up. I didn't go plan any of this, but what's fascinating is how all my stuff showed up, and then I went back and went, oh, that's why this happened. Oh, that's why this, which is why I'm sharing it with you, because it was so organic in me that I know these things may happen to you in your own way. So what happened with me is I bike quite a bit. But I usually am going on these longer bike rides. But we have a beautiful bike trail, dirt bike trail that is a little challenging, and it takes about an hour to do. I started getting obsessed with going. I started getting obsessed. This is all in April, May. And it was one I had never really done that much. But then I started going almost every day or every other day. And what I realized was, you have to focus on this trail, okay? Or you're going to run into a tree. Seriously. You're going to have an accident, you're going to have a problem, you're going to fall on rocks. It's not going to be pretty. So what it was is a mindfulness exercise for me, which assists in, for me, being able to focus on the thing and come into the now moment. And I don't know how it's connected, but it definitely helped my Kundalini situation. It helped me feel, well, actually more grounded. Of course, I'm outdoors too, which is a whole nother part of this. So focusing on the road, the path for literally 45 minutes to an hour, and I didn't do anything but that, brought me in and centered me and helped my energy body. Don't ask me how that's connected, but it helped my energy body be able to deal with the level of sensitivity that my body now feels. And I don't mean when I touch myself, level of sensitivity, I'm talking internally. And that has stayed with me, okay? And this is why all these shifts and changes have actually occurred. So this is, to me, I think, okay, they just said I'm going to reach a new set point. So what this is doing is this is working in my body as it comes in. It's always there, let me tell you. I can feel it. It's always there. Once it's been triggered and activated, it's always there. And then it starts to integrate into who you are and move through you and assist you. But we have to find ways to live with it and manage it, not just let it take us over. But it is so primal and it is so powerful. But what I have found is it will work with you. All right, with that said, we'll get to a couple other things that I've done and that I've noticed. So these are all kind of paired together in that things that I noticed that changed and shifted for me and the new practices that I have. Suddenly, I cannot handle, and I've, in Spiritual Awakening, you start realizing that noise is kind of an issue, or you can be very sensitive to it. Well, now it's just way too much for me. Like, I really want to just be in silence in my home. I used to always play background music, like shamanic meditation music, but I think it's too much for me now. And I have an issue with being grounded. So one of my biggest things is for me, and I think Kundalini assists you in not being grounded. And then when we're, in the spiritual awakening process, particularly me, I work in this, higher dimension every single day. So I'm just shot out most of the time and not very grounded. Well, Kundalini will require you to find a way to get grounded. And since then, I have become very, very grounded, and I start knowing when I'm not. Well, the meditation music that I'm listening to, I can tell it's too much for me. And so I quickly realized, wow, I'm not playing my music anymore. I haven't played it for days. It's so interesting. Now, I probably will come back into that, but the point is a lot of things that were ungrounding me and making me more sensitive, that's what shifted and changed to allow me to be more grounded. I also have a great obsession I've noticed since April of wanting to be outdoors. I'm an outdoorsy person, but I'm obsessed with being in nature now. I have also made a big point of, because I used to be a big wuss, I'd go out in the morning in my garden every morning, go pick herbs for breakfast and walk my garden, but I'd always put sandals on. Oh no. I need to be grounded. I go barefoot now. I don't care. My feet are getting very tough now. I am walking through the mulch. I'm walking through the garden. I'm getting anything I can do to get grounded and assist myself. So I have brand new practices. And it doesn't include meditating in the morning anymore. It includes my mindfulness breathing. Now, it doesn't mean I won't go back to meditation, but my mindfulness breathing, my not listening to the music like I used to obsessively, going out in nature, getting out in nature, doing the bike riding so I can focus on that. There's so many things. So it's all rooting me in and helping me. So again, I hope some of these things will help you as you, most assuredly, I can tell you, will go through a Kundalini awakening. And it's not a one-time event, typically. It should shift and change you forever, and the energy will continue to run through you. And you're going to notice it more and more. I guess I'll just say you'll notice it. I really feel it's there and available for you to work with. I haven't gotten to that stage yet because I'm still a little bit in the like, oh God, that's an experience I don't want to have again. So I've actually been working on how to manage it. And I'll just say keep it from happening again because honestly, it was scary for me. In the middle of the night, I live alone. I don't know what's happening to me. I now know how to manage it, but well, the one thing I didn't tell you about my experience, and I don't know how to explain this without, I almost didn't share this with you, but I need to. And this is when I really realized this was something different, was I felt as I was going through the Kundalini experience over that hour, I was out of control, and that something was screeching through me and was going to come out of me. And that I was just going to leave my body and be gone forever. But that it was a thing, and not a demon. No, but I knew that's what would probably freak some people out. But it's Kundalini. It was Kundalini. It's its own entity screeching through me. I felt like I was just going to leave and I would disappear. It's really hard to explain that. But know that it is there. And I do believe I'm going to work on working with it and see what I can do. I'm struggling right now to not in my mind initiate it, because I've actually had a couple circumstances where I'm lying in bed at night and I'll think about it, that experience, and then I can feel it start. And I'm like, oh, I'm bringing back cellular memory in my body. I'm able to start this up if I want to. Okay. And I wasn't grounded then. Okay. So when you're more grounded, it's less likely to happen in that, okay, they just said unintended way. So remember, Kundalini is here to help us through our journey, but it's a wholesale shift in our energy body, and our body goes through, okay, they just said like an earthquake. Yeah, it is. It's literally like this energetics, like shifting and changing us fully. So again, coupled with spiritual awakening, is the Kundalini Awakening. So let me share a few more things. There's a ton of things here. So I know this is getting a little bit long, but I really want you to know this, because then you can just come back to this. Remember, it's an ego-busting event. In many ways, for me, it's also a complete shift in your body, in your electrical system, is what they just said. The other thing I want is more peace. I don't have this driving desire to, honestly, even get together with the people that I care and love the most, that I just typically die to be with, you know. It's okay. Whenever it happens, it'll happen. It's okay. Everything's much more okay. It's really, for me, turned into, like I said, being able to take that ego and not, kind of like the last remnants of the big parts of the ego, to be able to set that aside. Now, that doesn't mean the ego's not there. I mean, you never get rid of the ego. It just works, like I've used the metaphor of sitting in the back seat of the car, nicely looking at the landscape, pointing it out, saying, hey, did you see that? That's so pretty. That's how you want your ego to behave, right? Okay, food. Okay, this has changed as well. We all know we have food shifts and changes in the awakening journey. What I have found, though, is has been some level of, it was almost kind of like a nauseous kind of thing after each of my Kundalini experiences, to the point where, and for me to not finish my breakfast that I love is really strange. I was very sensitive to what was on my plate. I think you can also start picking up more energy as to how the food was created, the environment was created in, the sensitivity to, and I'm a vegetarian. Well, for the most part, I do eat fish on occasion, but how everything and even the people that we're working at are treated in the process. That's actually probably another video at some point, but greater sense to everything. You almost always feel like you're on the edge all the time of this great sensitivity inside of you. Not like a nervous breakdown kind of thing. I don't mean that either. It's just there's so much more sensitivity to all the energetics around you and in each and everything. It's kind of what it boils down to. Everything's vibration, right? But the sensitivity to that heightens as you go through Kundalini Awakening, or at least as I have. I have also found that I am much more attuned to wanting to sun gaze. There's something also grounding in that for me. I've done a lot of these things I've done either previously or done before, but now I am drawn to have to do these. And again, I still say to you, none of these things just showed up. I just started doing them, and then I went, oh, let's figure out this pattern. What's happening here? Something has shifted and changed me. Oh, my higher self led me, again, you'll be guided, you'll be led to what works for me once I start having a Kundalini Awakening, okay? The hardest part is when you are in the throes of one of the events that can often happen, and to be able to manage that process without having fear. Okay, sensitivity to others. That's another thing. You're going to notice more, or at least I have noticed more and more of when I'm giving away far too much energy to others. I do feel that it opens us up even more to others and those who need our light. It doesn't mean it's a bad experience. It may be a wonderful, pleasurable experience. I actually had that happen this weekend where I was eating at a restaurant. I've been traveling a lot for little weekends for biking trips, taking myself places, and I love to go to restaurants and experience new foods and people. And I found 3 of the waitstaff. They're lovely women, but they could not stop talking to me. I'm not kidding. They actually were not serving their other people because they were standing around me, telling me their whole life story. It was so interesting, right? But then I suddenly realized this has gone on. They've let me eat on my own, but then they came back, and each one individually was talking, and I kept thinking, I think they need my energy. And then I realized, oh, wow. And of course, there's always value, most likely, in me being around them, too. I'm not saying, oh, I'm the one that they need to get the energy from, but I could tell something was going on here. And that I was starting to, I guess I would just say, starting to be able to tell my sensitivity around others more greatly. And that was one example of me knowing that I had really given too much away because I felt sick, like kind of nauseous, and like I was going to go into a full-blown Kundalini awakening as I'm walking back to the car when I'm out of town. So again, it's one of those things where you're going to notice what starts to trigger these events. I don't think I'm the only one in the world that has this happen more regularly. I don't think Kundalini is a one-time situation. I think it can happen in fits and starts, and I do think everyone's different, but I think they're common things. And I think a lot of what I've talked about today can actually initiate one, okay? Like I said, like me sitting thinking about it. And in fact, I could almost guarantee you I could bring one on right now. Also being able to manage your energy around others, know how much you can take and what you can't. Because you can also become ungrounded. I feel like for me, becoming very ungrounded allows Kundalini to just really start in, okay? As well as substances. But that's me. So another thing that I'm terrible at, and here I do every single day, I work with clients, and you would think I would clear regularly and sage and all that. You know, I'm not horrible at it, but I could do more, all right? I could definitely do more. Clearing ourselves regularly and our homes of the energy that we bring in. Because guess what? Even when you're online, as I think you mostly know, if you're in, let's say, I'll give you an example. I was in a huge group yoga class live where everyone's online. I think I ended up with the attachment that my energy healer found directly after that. It comes also, energy is exchanged through online methods. So you got to be aware of that too. So my point in that is clear yourself, put your boundaries up, have your spirit team and your angels and guides come in. I'm still learning how to do that regularly because I'm just terrible at it. I'm terrible at remembering to do that in the morning and at night, putting up my boundaries. So I'm pretty good at clearing, but still, we should have our practices. So Kundalini, knowing that it will probably come back again in whatever way it came to you maybe initially or in a different form, it will shift and change how you live your life. For me, I've had really strong practices set up prior to this, but what this has done is it has made me amp them up even more because guess what? I can't get away with not doing them anymore. I can't go back to the way I was. This is another thing I will recommend, and I'm also going to include her in the description box below. I was also magically led after my last Kundalini experience on Lionsgate weekend to our metaphysical center in town. And I was doing errands, and all of a sudden, again, this was not a planned thing. It just showed up. I was like, I think I'll go over and see if I can get something grounding, which I did buy this lovely little bracelet for grounding. Well, when I got there, I decided to talk to the owner who I know well. I said, I just need to talk to you about what's going on. So I spent some time speaking to her, and she proceeds to say to me on a Saturday, well, Angie's here. Angela's here today. She's new. She works specifically with Kundalini to help you manage it. And I'm like, what are the chances this woman's here today and I get to talk to her? Not that I would necessarily have a session, right? But she says she does Shiva Murti, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, right? So needless to say, I end up talking to Angie. She is this amazing woman who does this distance too, and she did her process on me that is absolutely incredible. It's energy work, but it's using this ancient, I believe it's Balinese, ancient Balinese energy healing method that she worked with the Kundalini. She reclaimed my energy. Basically, she said, no, we're going to have you take charge of this. This is your energy to work with. And then what she did, she also assisted in integrating all of this, as well as, believe it or not, working on my brain. I've never had such a powerful session in my life. And it all was to help manage out Kundalini for me. And she said to me, you're not going to have one of those experiences again in the way that you've had it. And I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I haven't. Now, it's just been 2 weeks. I realize that. But I integrated over 72 hours, and I could tell. Like, I said, oh my God, she did work on my brain. Shifted and changed who I was over 72 hours. And since then, I have been literally the most grounded person. There's not much that bothers me anymore. I know it's the Kundalini, but it's the being able to have had the session with her that has helped to integrate this beautiful energy that is in me now, working with me in my spiritual awakening journey. Now, it doesn't mean I won't necessarily have another one of those Kundalini moments again, but I'm going to start having regular sessions with her, because I'm here to say, I'm putting her down in the link below. If you are going through difficult times with your Kundalini, if you have this process happen to you down the road, which they've told me many of you are going to start having this happen, because we're moving into different energetic times. Not everyone in the spiritual awakening journey has had this happen yet, but it is a component of this process. They're saying it will happen. Okay. Divine light will come into each and every one of you, for it sits there at the base of you, the golden elixir to move through you in your journey, to open you up to all you have been and ever more. This takes you to the next level, allows you to live in mind, body, and soul from a higher perspective in your journey. You will learn to manage it. Do not fear. You will learn to manage it. Do not fear. Never fear. For it is the power behind the soul that you are in human form. The body you came to inhabit. It allows you to move into divineness, to fly through the night skies in ways that you could never imagine before. Bringing light to the dark, being all you can be and evermore. It is the beginning of the journey forward to the collective consciousness that is the oneness of all. For all will be journeying this path at one point or another through the awakening journey, along with the energetic shift and change that Kundalini brings. Well, okay, I didn't expect that. Wow. Okay, that was kind of neat. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me see what else I've mentioned here. Okay, just a few things as an overview. Don't fear. All right, don't fear. Get fear out of it, because if you're like me, you'll go into full-on anxiety, panic attack. And I could tell I could have gone there, but I thought, nope, we're not doing that. Nope, we're not doing that. And each time it's happened to me, I've been able to just go, okay, I know what's happening here. Even though there's a part of me that, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, we're human, right? Watch your thoughts. Don't try to manifest it out of you, because we can manifest a lot these days. Don't manifest one. And that takes a little doing, because thoughts are things, right? And your body feels your thoughts. And so if you sit there and start thinking about your Kundalini and that wild ride you had a month ago, guess what? I have found that you can manifest them. So I don't think about it much. I am grateful. I give gratitude for it, for what it's doing for me and where it's taking me in my journey, because so much is changing in me. I am literally like a different person than I was in April. I attribute it all to this journey forward. It's you want to work at integrating it through these methods that I talked about. You're going to find some of your own methods. And then the thing I would say to you too, those of you who have not gone through this process, you can prepare, okay? Doesn't mean it's initiating it, but you can prepare your energy body and your physical body. Now, again, I go back to, I'm very fortunate. I have no health issues, and I'm not on any medications. I have, and not that that would be an issue, but my point is that obviously is helpful. I have done body work and I highly recommend this. I have done physical body work, Shiatsu Massage, since 1999, every 2 weeks. If you have the option, and Swedish massage is wonderful, all the other massages are wonderful, not the same, okay? Shiatsu Massage is an amazing process that it works on your energy pathways, your meridians, gets rid of those subos, all that knotted up. It allows flow. So remember, I'm big on flow, right? I've been working on flow in my body since 1999, and I know that's no chance that I started doing Shiatsu Massage every 2 weeks. It was preparing me for my awakening journey so that my body would be able to flow this energy through. Because when we have a body that is knotted up and unable to manage energy within us, guess what happens? We have difficult experiences. So I would say to you, if you can find a licensed practitioner who is reputable with Shiatsu Massage, I can't say enough about that method of massage because it's therapeutic, okay? It is a therapeutic situation. So look into that, I would say, if you want to start preparing or just improving your physical well-being and your mental well-being too. But prepping, I have now realized, makes a big difference. Energy clearing, I would say get yourself a good energy clearing practitioner, somebody you enjoy having do sessions. I would say, I offer distance energy healing too, but there are a lot of people that do it, and you may already have one that you enjoy. Point is, at least on a monthly basis is wonderful. And once you add this all up, this is all healthcare. This is what healthcare should be about, right? So healthcare, energy clearing of your chakras, being able to assist you in integrating those energies, similar to what I just talked about with Angie, who I'm going to put down below. Water. Drink water. Stay away from all the other fluids that there are out there. Water. You can drink tea, but water. And I drink my coffee still in the morning, that's fine. But I'm talking about the stuff you do consistently, right? And just don't drink pop, don't drink any. That's literally like what they're showing me right now. Okay, it's like, they said you're going to need an oil change fast. So it's like gunks everything up inside of us, okay? Energy flow, it gunks us up. Sugary stuff. Doing some form of stretching, exercise, movement to let your body flow. Think about what allows your body to flow energy through it. Okay, there's things like Pilates, but the flexibility part, that's key. Opening yourself up to allow flow, those longer stretches, getting out in nature. Again, a lot of these are part of self-care, but just know that things will shift and change from your practices you've had before to more specific ones and different ones when you actually start experiencing Kundalini, because your body is going through such a shift and change of energetic proportion that it's much more sensitive. And this, again, I just started this in April. I may be in an in-between where I then will move to a whole different state, and I'll keep you updated, but I really wanted to share this with you today because they have told me that we're all going to go through this. And of course, they're giving it to me first so I can help you all understand that spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening are paired together, okay? It's not just spiritual awakening, all right? Yes, we have energetic events in spiritual awakening, but let me tell you, you have it in the body. It's a very personal event when Kundalini starts, and it takes you, they just said, it's next level. And I'm like, yeah, it is next level. It's next level, but our body, they just showed vibrating molecules. Okay, no wonder that makes so much sense. Okay, it really takes your body to a whole different place of existence. Ooh, okay. That makes so much sense. Okay, so this is kind of weird right now. I have a little bit of a feel, because I'm really in a different space. I kind of feel like I could initiate a Kundalini situation with me. We're not going to have that happen right now. So that just shows you how sensitive you can be. Again, I think this is this in-between thing for me where I'm adjusting bodily. Remember, they said June, July, and August, supercharged changes in our journey. And I feel like I'm going to be coming into a whole different place starting at the end of the year. So with that said, I hope today that I've given you some sense of what it's like to have this divine energy, this Kundalini energy run through you. and in my case, this is my very individual experience, the very organic things that I started to do that I didn't understand until about 3 months later. And I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why I was doing all these things. So you're going to be guided, you're going to be assisted forward. But I think the most important thing is to be able to, when you have the big explosive experiences, find a way to manage them in the moment, as I've talked about here in my experiences, and then support yourself afterwards with regular practices. You can no longer get away with ignoring yourself. Okay? We just can't. We're just in such high energetic times where Kundalini, I feel, is just going to be ignited in so many of us to take us to, like they said, next level. So I leave you with that today, and I leave you with my services, purplerainhealing.com, where I work with you on all of these things. I can work with you on Kundalini. I can work with you on understanding your journey by channeling information for you from your spirit team, your angels, your guides, and your higher self to help you on your journey forward. I have all kinds of sessions that offer that, either through Spiritual Awakening Mentoring or just channel documents where you're offered pages of information on your journey, including past lives, what assists you in the present moment, and also what the future may hold as a potential. So with that today, I would love to work with you. Reach out at purplerainhealing.com, and you can see all of my services there. And I really look forward to seeing you again in the next video, as well as potentially working with you. Thank you.